Present.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Present.
Mayor Moore,
Present.
Town Manager Labadie,
Present.
and Town Attorney Rubin.
Present.
If we could please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the agenda? No?
No.
Seeing no changes, if we could have a motion, please.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving on, presentations, proclamations, there are none. Moving on to public comments. Public comments will be limited to 5 minutes. Do we have any public comments today? No?
What?
Do we have
Hold
one?
on.
Oh, okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom McCarthy. I'm your Assistant Chief of Operations for the Fire Department. I'm here to present to you today the Community Connect program that we've started within the Fire Department. And basically what Community Connect is, it's an opportunity for citizens, residents, to put a personal profile within a database that is very secure, it's bank level encrypted. So what it does is it gives us an opportunity to do a few things. First and foremost, it's a deeper level of communication and relationship building between fire rescue, the town, and our citizen base. The other thing it does is it gives us the opportunity to, depending on what the citizen chooses to put into that profile, have some data available to us to anticipate and prepare to meet some special needs that the person requesting our service is asking for. It's a really simple sign up. There's a QR code that's attached to this. And Lynette has already assisted us out of the clerk's office to be able to get the word out. In addition to that, our person on the streets will be also getting the word out too, to provide the flyers. We can also put on the town's website, fire department's website, this QR code. And it gives a pretty easy step-by-step process to where when people want to register in, they can give as much or as little data as they want in there. One of the things that the city of Fort Lauderdale has discovered has to do with access. So their trial run led to a lot of successes in their high rises that have different access points for different floor levels. So if by chance somebody lives on a floor level that has a little bit more of a challenge than a routine trip up the elevator to a specific floor, they can actually put that in their first year profile. What's really helpful for us with that is when we get a call for service, in addition to the dispatch, what we call a CAD data push that comes to our units via a multi-data terminal, we can also see an attachment within that informational push that our personnel can then tab into and see that, okay, there's a nuance to accessing the citizen's unit. So that nuance could be this stairwell to this stairwell, back to this elevator, et cetera. Fort Lauderdale Fire Department has anticipated what they call a decrease in vertical time of almost 50 to 80%. And that's because people already had that ground level intel on how to get there. So for a lot of reasons, this Community Connect platform is one of these things that we were looking forward to an opportunity to present to the citizens when we acquired First Two for some of our, record memory systems, data points. We're able to say, okay, now that we have this up and running, how are we going to be able to maximize it? People are more than welcome to come in. Our doors are always open, and we're thankful that we have a very engaging community that does like to come in. And at that point in time, we'd be more than happy to, let Mr. and or Mrs. Smith fire up the cell phone, grab the QR code, and literally walk them through that. This morning, we did a beta test with Jackie over in the clerk's office, and she was rather amazed. She's actually our first user. So I want to encourage as many people as want to participate in this program to please take advantage of it. It helps us help the citizens.
Would that also mean that if there's mobility issues or some health issues, because a lot of times when you come into my building, I know for sure, it's mostly medical.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So, and actually you'll see with some of the icons that are on there, some of the more prominent icons that are on the flyer sheet have to do with property. Again, we talked about nuance as far as accessibility. Your people, sometimes if you're a seasonal resident, there may be one person here. However, when the season runs around, Now we got about a half a dozen folks. Special needs, wheelchair accessibility, if somebody's on home oxygen, those are things that are important for us to know to be able to help more expediently.
Mhm.
And pets are important. And there is actually a data element portal within there where you can put your pet information in there as well. And it helps us on a lot of different levels. It really helps us understand if there's a dog in there that may have a little bit of a temperamental issue. So that's good to know. But the other thing is too that, you know, pets are a part of these experiences. It's not normal for fire rescue and or public safety in general to come into somebody's house in our size and our uniforms, all the equipment we carry. So it gives us that extra opportunity to understand what we're going into with people's pets too.
Should we, besides doing individually, have the condo do it that we're in? They could tell you more about it because give you warning in that. I guess that would be good for the condo to also do it.
Well, Mr. Peters, to be honest with you, one of the things that we've been doing since actually pre-inception, started last summer, was our pre-fire planning. And so in addition to our pre-fire planning, we were able to get some of those items that you're speaking of.
Mhm.
This is something that's actually more specific to a resident within this building.
Okay.
So, but that doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that we do not look for and continue to engage with condo associations in general and be able to have these opportunities. But at the current state right now, this is strictly for a unit citizen
Okay.
user.
Right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
As a suggestion, to send out to the condo presidents or president of the boards, the information that they could post on their website or building link to the community within the building, so they have an access and an idea what to do and they can follow through.
Yes, sir, absolutely, without a doubt. You know, one of the best parts about being public safety, especially on the fire side, is our ability and willingness to have those levels of engagement. We pride ourselves on being versatile.
Yeah, that'll be key, right? Getting the communication out so that people know to sign up. So I guess there's the weekly news flash, right? Yeah. So what is the plan for getting the communication out?
Yes, everywhere. So we'll put it on we'll send it directly, condo manager, all the groups that we have, we'll
Right.
put it out there. We'll distribute it through the library newsletter, our weekly flashes, put it on the website, just to make sure it's everywhere for people to slowly gain interest. I guess it's going to take some time. And then future community events, we'll make sure we'll have, police and fire generally have a little booth or some area out and let people, they can even have a computer on site and do it at the moment. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think printouts will also be key because not everybody's so electronic yet. So printouts at building lobbies and town hall.
We like to pronounce
a
for a lot of
library.
reasons.
The library might be another important place.
Right. And we like to pronounce for a lot of reasons because it gives us that opportunity for that one-on-one engagement as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for a lot of reasons, I agree with the electronic media blitz without a doubt, but there's still nothing better than our firefighters walking somebody through the QR code scan and then helping them fill out the profile.
Right. Yeah. Because you want as many people to actually go do it,
Without a
sign
doubt.
up, right?
Without
That's
a
the
doubt.
key.
More intel is better for us,
Yeah.
which is better for the service we provide.
Yeah. But this is great. I'm really glad that we're doing this. I think it's really important and, exactly what we want for our community. So yeah, thank you for doing that. So far Fort Lauderdale has done it. Have other cities implemented something like this as well?
So we know Fort Lauderdale intimately because we have relationships amongst our peer group. So once we locked into Fort Lauderdale was doing it, especially with being from Broward County, we really zeroed in on what they were doing. Yeah, obviously there are other communities that are doing this. First Due is actually a relatively new player to what we would call the electronic data gathering game within public safety. They have a really good pre-fire plan platform that our fire marshal's office has been utilizing for the better part of a year now. So in conjunction with that, that's how we learned about First Due. So that's when we started having these relationships with these other agencies.
Great. Yeah, that partnership is great. Learning what other
without a doubt.
best practices from other departments. That's excellent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Have a
Thank
great
you.
afternoon.
Mayor, may I make an
Yes, of
announcement
course.
to the public? The Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections Office is looking for poll workers for the upcoming election. So you must be a resident of Palm Beach County and a registered voter to become a poll worker. And they can contact the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections Office. That's it.
Okay, great. I guess that's it for public comments. Moving on to ordinances. We have one proposed ordinance, an ordinance of the Town Commission of Town of Highland Beach, amending Article 6 Flood Plan Management of Chapter 20, Planning and Development of the Town Code of Ordinances to update the date of the flood insurance study and flood insurance maps, adopt a requirement for the accumulation of the cost of improvements over a 3-year period, and provide for general updates for the town's continued participation in the National Flood Insurance Program.
Commission, Jeff Ramus, building official, Town of Highland Beach. I'll go ahead and just read this because there's a lot of things in here, but I don't know how many questions you're going to have. So this ordinance updates Highland Beach's floodplain management regulations to comply with FEMA requirements and continue participation in National Flood Insurance Program. It incorporates the revised flood insurance study and maps that are effective December 20th, 2024, and introduces a 3-year accumulation of improvement of cost to prevent avoidance of FEMA compliance. This ordinance has minimal fiscal impact as most property owners already undertake single large projects rather than multiple smaller ones to avoid FEMA thresholds. This conclusion is based on recent data and observations showing limited instances of cost manipulation. The ordinance is integral to reinstating the town in FEMA's community rating system, which we can talk about later, which will provide NFIP, National Flood Insurance Program premium discounts to the residents and reduce flood risk. The updates align with Florida Building Code and apply to all development applications submitted after the effective date. The ordinance includes provisions for severability, conflict resolution, codification, and takes effect immediately upon adoption.
So Jeff, the biggest change, why don't you walk through the 3-year accumulation of improvements for substantial improvement?
Okay.
I think that's the biggest change you will see in here. Otherwise, it's a map change. Map changes are kind of already in place, but that's the largest change in the ordinance that really is going to affect the most property owners.
Yeah, understood. So as far as the 3-year change, right now with FEMA, if you are in a flood zone, and just about almost every single property in the town of Highland Beach is in a flood zone, and you want to do improvements, and the cost of the improvements exceeds, or actually meets 50% of the value of the structure, then you have to bring the whole house up to FEMA standards. And in some cases up north, we would, raise things up off the foundation. Here, it's a little bit more difficult for that. We've had this happen here before where we've had people who ended up having to pour 6 inches of concrete and raise. Luckily, they had 10-foot ceilings, so they were able to comply. They were only off by 6 inches. But what we have is what I've come across in other states and in Florida is that sometimes people will be at that threshold. So what they'll do is they'll go, all right, I'm going to do half the work this year and half the work next year. And it's a way that they use to circumvent the system by pulling them on different years. So what we did is speaking with our FEMA representative who works with us directly, we come up with a number of 3 years. All right. It's very common. Some municipalities use a 5-year, which is pretty restrictive. And I forget which one it was, but one of them actually uses a 10-year program where they track your costs for 10 years. And if you exceed that 50% in a 10-year period, then you have to bring the whole building up. So we felt as though starting off down at the 3 will be helpful for us. It'll help us as we try to get back in the community rating system, the CRS program, which the town did participate in for years. And that'll just put us in a better position to give our residents discounts on their flood insurance premiums.
So I have a question. That 50% standard, how do you estimate for 50% of what?
The value, basically the market value of the home. So we
The
can take
home, the structure only?
the structure itself.
Not the land.
Not-
And how do they, it's pretty easy to come up with the entire property, what the value is. How do you come up with the value just for the structure?
So it's actually pretty easy because the county appraiser's office already does that for us. It separates
Okay.
land.
So it's
and
based on the
it-
county
it's based on
appraisers?
the county. However, like I did have a resident this past year who applied and they were going to do like 60% of the value. And I said, well, now you have to bring the whole thing up. And then they went and they got an actual appraisal that was able to show that the home had a higher market value
Okay,
than. So then we accept that as long as
Okay.
it's reasonable and it's by a
Okay.
certified, and we can use that. So then they were able to use that to keep under that 50% threshold.
okay, so you start with the county's value, but then if the homeowner can present something else, then you, as long as it's reasonable, you would accept that.
100%.
Okay,
Correct.
and then it's a 3-year window at which you do this benchmark.
Yes.
And by implementing this, then the residents in the town get will be eligible for discounts for their,
Well, once we are accepted back into the community rating system, the town was in the community rating system up until about, I think, 2015, somewhere around there. And then they just fell out of it, but we're still eligible to go back in. So it's one of the things that I've wanted to do since I got here, and I'm just waiting for the timing to be right. And with the flood maps coming in, it's a great time. Basically, the more protective you are and the more, I don't want to use the word restrictive in your ordinance, in your floodplain ordinance, the more that FEMA likes it and the better off you are with that, with as far as helping you in the community rating system, because you're rated on essentially like a 1 through 10. And the higher the number, the more you pay, the lower the number, the less that your residents pay. So if we go from a 10, we're at a 10 right now.
we're at a 10.
If we
Okay.
go to a 9, which is no discount, if we go to a 9, the residents get a 5% discount. And in the case of what we're paying in premiums, that's going to save the residents overall about $55,000 a year in premium. If we get it down to an 8, they're going to save $110,000 a year, across the board for everyone. And I do have some numbers if you wanted them with the actual amount of properties that are.
Well, I guess I'm curious, like by doing this, it'll go from a 10 to a, what rating do you think it would go to?
I don't know. Maybe the first
You
year
don't
they'll
know.
just give us a 9, maybe we
Okay.
can go to an 8, but just having the software system that we have in place now, we got a new software system with the support of the town manager, Mr. Labadie, was helpful in being able to secure that. Just having the software gives us like almost 163 points towards this community rating system. They're on a point system. And there's other things we have to put in play. I'm working right now on getting as many of the elevation certificates that we can find in the system. Linelda has been super helpful with that and giving us everything we can so we can put it into the software system. And it's all these reports that we have to send into FEMA to show that we're going above and beyond, which is why like the 3-year is important, in here. And one of the other things that's in here, and I know that you never know. We now have verbiage in here that was approved by FEMA. It was actually their idea to where you cannot put a mobile home in a flood zone.
Mhm.
Well, legally, we can't prohibit someone from putting a mobile home somewhere. You can't have an ordinance that says that, but under the floodplain, you could say that that you can't have any mobile homes in a floodplain. This isn't necessarily the community for that, but it would be a legal option for someone if they really wanted to. But now that kind of closes that door and it makes it safer because as someone who's witnessed what happens to mobile home parks during flood events, it's not pretty.
So this thing about the 3-year, what do you call this? The 3-year with
They call it a look back.
okay, this look back.
It's like a look back.
This implementation of this look back. So is the trade-off really, if we don't do this, then people are a little bit more flexible in doing renovations because they don't have to meet this criteria?
Well, they would try to circumvent it by just staging over several years. They would say, all right, I'm going to do this part of my renovation this year. I'm going to put the addition on next year.
But if
So
we
th-
didn't implement it, they don't have to do that at all, right? Or is there already that?
Right now, that's how they can do it.
that-
Right now, they can circumvent it.
Okay,
Okay?
by just doing 1 year after, just do
Do
subsequent
something 1 year,
years.
they could just circumvent it. This is going to close that because they're going to have to spread it out over 3 years, which makes it a little bit more difficult. You
Mhm,
have to really try a little bit harder to do it.
mhm, mhm.
And honestly, I've only had one property so far that
Have
backed
you
out
had
of doing work
Mm.
because, and what they're doing is they're actually they scaled back the job.
Mhm.
And then they were going to tear the house down. And then they
Right.
decided not to tear the house down.
Right.
And then they went to do an addition, and then they decided they weren't going to do an addition. So
Right.
they're making up their mind where they're going to be. This would kind of help put them in a better direction.
So you're saying implementing this look back wouldn't really impact many people at all, but most of the residents will at least see some sort of discount on their flood insurance premiums.
Right. Having
Hopefully,
this
but
in
we
there.
don't know exactly.
Yes,
how much
having
it's
this in there will definitely help.
Will definitely help. You just don't know how much.
We just,
Could be
yeah,
as
we
much
don't
as
know.
5%, could be more.
Could be
depending on-
5%, could be 10. I don't know where we're going to land.
And again, really what the FEMA's working for is the removal of repetitive loss. So you get a structure, you hear about it all the time in the Mississippi River Valley. Oh, there's a home, falls down, they rebuild it, it floods out 3 more years later. It falls. So the concept of this resiliency, which we are all part of now, and how your rate structure is determined is having resilient structures that aren't going to flood every time, you know, the intercoastal comes up on a king tide or we get a heavy rain or a hurricane. So the idea is to, I don't want to say make it more challenging, but it really does is that, you know, you that 50% improvement, which here is a lot. It's a substantial sum of money. But it keeps people from saying this year I'm going to do 49%. Next year I'm going to do 49%. They stay away, but they never address the preliminary issue, which is to raise the structure. So this makes it a little more challenging, speds out that time, and then maybe gets more people to come into compliance or be more creative with their architects on how to make the improvements to the property.
How would that work with a condo? Because the first 3 floors have to have flood insurance. When you get above that, it's unlikely if you're on the 7th floor that you're going to flood. You could have water damage, but not from rising tide water. So how would it affect it? Would it affect it for the building itself or for individual units or?
So it's based on the elevation of the unit. If you have, probably only your first floor units are the only ones that may be susceptible to this.
Mhm.
They can't raise it. So you have to look at really the entire structure, the whole condo itself. So unless the condo itself is going to do some major renovation and have to change their first floors and take the first floors and add them to this, add another floor on top.
Right.
I don't really foresee the 3-year at all really having any effect on condominiums themselves. This would be really a lot of single family homes, maybe some townhomes, but that would be the extent of it. Maybe some apartment buildings, which we only have very few, maybe 10 apartment buildings in town.
So a first floor unit wouldn't be subject to that 50%
No.
look back thing.
Yeah, they can't, because I don't know what they're going to do, because they're part of a whole other structure
Right,
building.
but if they wanted to do 100% renovation of their unit, they can do it,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Because
never been an issue
that's
before.
not an issue at all.
Yeah.
They can still do it. It's really just a single family
It's geared
home.
towards single family homes and other
Maybe do like
buildings,
2-unit or 4-unit
Yeah.
type thing.
smaller item.
Because the structure that it's being compared to is the entire structure, right?
Right, it's the entire structure. And which is why we see all the homes in Bellito being knocked, and I have more on the list. They're going to get knocked down and new ones put in there because they want bigger homes, taller, with
More resilient.
higher floors.
Do you know how the 10 rating that we have now compares to some of our neighbors and so forth? What's our opportunity?
I didn't bring those specific numbers, but I actually did look at them. And there are a lot of 10s and 9s that are around us, but there are also a lot of 6, 7, and 8s around us too, where people are really being aggressive. I know, as far as locally, the numbers are all over the place. It depends if they're in, if they're in a CRS or not. If they're not in a CRS, of course, they're going to be a 10 like we are, because we're technically out of the CRS, but we're still qualified to be in the CRS,
What is CRS?
the community rating.
Community
System.
rating system.
Okay.
So it sounds like there is definite opportunity.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to get, have the opportunity to put everything in place to get this town back into the community rating system like it was once before, so that the residents could enjoy the benefit or less stress of, paying less for their flood insurance.
Would having a higher seawall requirement help us?
That's something that I'm going to have to check with them, because seawalls aren't considered structures under the FEMA's rules and regulations as far as where we would have to place things, but it helps the community in general. So that's something that I would have to ask, and I will follow up with one of the FEMA rep and ask if that's something that would be helpful, because that's something that we are doing. Because we are seeing with the new flood maps that we have people who were not in the flood zone are now going to be back in the flood zone. We have people who are currently in the flood zone who are actually coming out of the flood zone in some areas on the ocean, believe it or not.
But it's because it seems to me that if your seawall is higher, it's certainly going to protect the property and therefore protect the structure.
As far as from any type of surging and so on and so forth,
Mhm.
but if, you know, your neighbor's seawall is down low, that water's still gonna come in and everybody's gonna get flooded anyway. But it's certainly going in the right direction.
If we went to a longer look back, 5 to 10 years, would we get a lot more points? Would we get more?
I'd have to ask, I don't know, that's part of a multi-factor system, and that's just one part of it. I would say that yes, I think the more restrictive you are, the more, like if we, instead of saying we have to build 1 foot above, just follow the Florida building code and build 1 foot above base flood elevation, you can do 18 inches or 2 feet. And some communities up north chose 18 inches because the FEMA, the rating system then gave you credit for 2 feet above, and that lowered your premium. So the lower your home is, the more your premiums are. So the higher you build the home, the more you get credit and you pay less money. So there's a whole bunch of things that we could add in the future. Right now, I'm just trying to build some of the basics based off the FEMA's feedback and telling them, hey, I want to get us back into CRS. What can I do? And this was certainly one of the things that came up.
So I guess I don't quite understand. How does implementing this rule that affects all the properties in the town? How does an individual, but an individual property owner would still benefit from a credit because of this?
If the town participates, and let's say the first year we're a 9 and we get a 5% discount, every single resident that participates in a National Flood Insurance Program and pays a premium will get a 5% discount on their insurance rate.
Even if there's no change to their property,
Even if there's no change at all. This is not a change for those who do work. This is a change for the community as a whole. Which is why 5% would be about a $55,000 savings right now, you know, across the board for all the residents who participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, all 2,800 plus.
So I know I'm the only single family owner, and I don't know if you guys have seen your flood insurance premiums or if they've changed at all, but mine went from 2,000, I was at 2,000, and it jumped to $7,800.
Nice.
I
I love that.
So, and is that because the base flood elevation increased by a foot and because we have no discounts for our residents?
Well, yeah, we have no discounts as of now because we don't participate in the CRS. And it's, again, there's multiple factors that go into your flood insurance rates. And one of the big ones is where your house is in comparison, where your finished floor elevation is in comparison to the base flood elevation. And the base flood elevation for those on the intracoastal side is going up at least 1 foot. On the ocean is going up 2 feet. Some people, depending upon where you're at, I have where the corner of their home is actually going to go up 2 feet. But like I said, we have people coming in and people going out of the flood with the new maps. The new maps are more accurate because of GPS and data that they put together.
So I don't know if the condo people have looked at their, have this experience. I mean, I would imagine this
I-
discount would be a big deal, right? I mean,
I've noted it for myself. I don't remember the exact numbers or percentage, but I was very surprised about it.
so I would think a discount would benefit us, right? I mean, do we want to do a longer look back so that we can or try to implement more things to try to get more of a discount, or we can just take this proposal now and
This is step 1.
I guess this is step 1, and then you can consider doing more things. that
Right.
would-
Every time that we make a change after this, first of all, this was put together by our FEMA rep. All right. And this is something that they would approve. So once this is approved with the 2 readings, okay, then I have to submit this back to FEMA for them to reevaluate to make sure we didn't make any changes. And then they'll put it into their system. And in the future, if we make any changes, it's the same thing. It's a change of an ordinance and we would have to revisit it. You're the governing body, you decide what you want to do, and I'm gonna. This is an upgrade, it's a step up. And we've cleaned up a lot of language because we don't have a floodways here, which are like rivers and streams. I'm content and I'm happy about the 3 years right now. And we have the software that I can type in whatever number we can put in 3-year look back, 5-year, 10-year, and it could be changed again in the future if need be, but it's your call. If you want to go to 5-year, like some of the other towns, and I don't know who they are, I don't remember them all. I know some of the counties like Collier County and so on are definitely a 5-year. It's your call on what you want to do. I'm very happy just having the 3 based on the amount of I've had minimal issues in this town because we have maybe under 300 single family homes in Highland Beach and 178 or 180 townhomes.
I have a question. For those structures that are now below the base flood elevation, what impact, if any, will this have on them?
This ordinance will have no impact at all. All right, unless we get into the CRS, then they can get a 5% discount.
Assuming that we get into the CRS, yes.
Yes, then they'll get a discount if we get into the CRS. If not, and they're below base flood elevation, that affects their insurance rate. Their insurance rate will eventually just keep getting higher because the higher the BFE, base flood elevation, goes up, the more expensive it's going to be for you, which is why the last few homes that were built on the intercoastal side, they listened. I said, hey, I would recommend that and they've done it. And they went up an extra foot. They went to 8 feet.
So the community as a whole will benefit with the best rate, not only participation, but the best rate that we can have in the system. Now we can adjust whether it's 2 feet, 3 feet, or 5-year rather. So then the downside, the negative impact would be only on that person who is taking on building and looking over the cost of the improvements, the 50%, or whatever that particular running number is, it would only affect them. They would have to, do
Yes.
whatever they're doing. Now they have 5 years rather than 3.
Right. 3 or 5 doesn't, it only affects the people who are doing the work. You are absolutely correct.
Okay.
And what
Got it.
this does is also incentivizes people to say, hey, you know what? This house has been here for the last 30, 40 years. It's time to replace it and put a new, more flood resistant one up, and meet that resiliency requirement and build a new home, which is newer home, new construction, usually larger and generates more tax.
Yeah, I mean, it's only going to impact people with homes that are at a lower elevation, so the older homes, and they have lower ceilings because they're not going to have the ability to fill in the ceilings. And if they want to do a renovation that's more than 50% of their structural value. So if it's just a minor renovation, it's not going to impact them. And if they think they're only going to do a renovation once every so years, it's not going to impact them.
No.
It's those people who want to keep the original structure, want to gut it or whatever, don't have the ability to raise the floor. It's going to impact those. And Jeff is saying it's only impacted one person since you've been here. Is that what you're saying? 1 or 2 people?
Yeah, well,
since
one
you've
within the
been-
last year, when I was first coming on board, we had one person down on Highland Beach Drive who wanted to spend almost $1 million to put a 3-foot tall by 10-foot wide by 17-foot long glass pool on their roof that was going to cost almost $1 million, but it put them beyond there. And at the time, Jeff Massey was the building official, and he's like, "Yeah, just doing that was a substantial improvement." We said,
So, I mean, I would be inclined to do what we can in order to get the highest discount for
Right,
the
right.
residents of the town. So if we're not getting a lot of issues with the look back period thing, because, yeah, I mean, most people would knock down their home. And then, but not everyone. I didn't. So I did a renovation of my home. Glad I did it when I did it, I guess. And then Yeah, and then the condos, it doesn't even impact you because the structure is so much, it would never really, so. And I can tell you, I really would prefer to have a discount, on the, get as much discount on our flood insurance. So I would say, let's increase the look back period. I don't know if we want to look at some of those other factors that would also give us more points.
Yeah, we're gonna look into it. It starts with the ordinance, and if you want to take it to 5 years instead of 3, I think that's a great move.
I think, I don't know. I don't know if we want to,
That's a
if
great
there's any
idea.
public comments about this, if we're ready for public comments.
But it's also going to be the first read, and we'll just make a little adjustment from 3 to
fine.
5.
And it appears this is not going to negatively affect any of the condo owners.
No, because the
They can do
structure is so
100%,
much.
Right, and they could do 100%.
Right, correct.
And the
Someone on the
cost-
first floor could do a total gut job of their condo because they would be compared to the entire structure
Right.
and they would never meet the 50% rule.
To be
That
fair,
is correct. Now, there's certain things that you have to do regardless, where with flood, if their elevation is that low, that they have to do some flood proofing, but they don't have to, you can't raise a whole condo because one guy
Right.
wants to
Mhm.
remodel.
but also in a lot of condos, I know that to gut my apartment would be anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000. Well, that's a lot less than 50% of the value of the unit. And I think that that's probably going to be true in most of our buildings. That, unless you're doing something outrageous. And, well, there too, okay, thinking out loud. The amount that it costs to do a gut job in part depends on the materials that you are putting in. So if instead of marble floors, you put in porcelain, that brings down the cost of the job. So does that play a factor?
Well, there's certain things that we wouldn't even take into consideration for costs like painting and even some tile work and so on and so forth. These are the hard costs for the overall.
I mean,
amount of
because
money.
you can put in a refrigerator that costs you $250 or $22,000 or $5,000. So that really shouldn't
Right.
play into it.
No,
Okay,
and it doesn't. It doesn't even come into the permit valuation.
thank
It
you.
appears to be a win-win.
I think
Oh,
so.
I
That's
think
what it
so.
sounds like to me. I don't know.
And I'd be interested to see what the difference is in the discount, between the three-year look back and the 5-year. But I think that if it appears that this will have a positive effect for everyone in Highland Beach on their insurance. And insurance costs are so extraordinarily
Mhm.
high and they keep increasing. So I think I'd be interested, like you had pointed out, in a 5-year, if that gives us even more of a discount. What do you think if that 5% would go to what? A discount on a 3-year look back?
Well, there are multiple moving parts to this
So
whole
it's not
thing.
just-
And the
And this
CRS.
is just a part in the CRS. And the look back is just a part of it, but it has a positive impact. It might be the difference between an 8 and a 9 or an
Mhm.
8 and a 7. I
Mhm.
don't know. But certainly it's going to be looked at more favorably by FEMA when they put their whole point system. It's a big point system.
Mhm.
So it can get very complicated. I'm not even sure 100% of exactly how the whole thing works because it's done kind of behind the scenes. So it will absolutely be helpful. And it could be the difference between one number or another, or it could maybe not make that much of a difference, but it has to have a positive impact because it's more restrictive than not having anything at all.
Yeah, and if there are other aspects that you think would also help our scoring, then we would like to hear them. If there's other things, maybe, now in the next read, if you could identify if there are any other things that you think that could help with our scoring that didn't really impact too many people, but could something.
Understood. Yeah, and that's not a problem. Like, it would be great to have, go to the 18 inches instead of, but we're already having issues with people with the driveways and how steep they are because our roads are lower and so on and so forth. So that makes it a little bit tougher
Okay,
to be too aggressive because unless we're going to be raising the roads up and then it's going to kind of be tough when
right.
people want what kind of cars they want in their driveway and
Yeah, because we'll be parking like.
You're gonna be looking like this, so you have to be within reason. If there was a
Right.
new, if we had a lot of new development, it would
Right.
certainly pay for us to say, hey, this is what we need to do.
Right.
Because now this whole new development can be raised up, it'd be real easy for that.
Right.
But we're trying to pack things in, you know, in a small area, and our development is minimal.
And we make a change in our building code that distinguishes between a new development and something that's currently existing. So that if you have it now, you don't have to do anything, but if you're building something new, you have to go the 18 inches.
So that's something that you would put in a floodplain ordinance, and we'd have to run it through FEMA to see if that was, if they would even approve something like that.
Because it seems to me it would really be different. I would imagine this applies more often to people buying a house and then deciding to, maybe it costs too much to renovate, that they'll just knock it down and start over because it'll save a huge amount of money.
And that's what we're saying. So we're seeing a lot of homes just being knocked down, and it's really just going to affect the homes that are very low. You know, if somebody wants to remodel the kitchen, remodel their bathroom, do some changes, put a roof on, it's not a big deal, but it's when you want to do a major renovation and the home is low, at some point you have to get with the new firm maps.
Any public comment about?
I have a
No, no, no.
question, right, before we do that. Is there a requirement right now, if someone has a home, or about buying a home, buying into the home, and it's low, first floor is low? What would happen to them under this situation? I mean, what would happen? They're low, they're buying the new home. So this is just a matter of just the insurance costs. They're not going to be, it's not a knockdown situation.
No, you can purchase an existing home and move in it, and
Okay.
if you want to pay really heavy insurance,
High insurance.
yeah, if you want to be 5 feet below base flood
Right.
elevation for the next 40 years and pay that insurance, you can do
Right.
that.
Okay.
Mayor,
Pay
I-
cash and not have insurance, right? Or choose not to be insured, I guess.
Okay.
Self-insured.
I looked at the ratings of our surrounding communities while Jeff was talking. Ocean Ridge is a 6, Gulfstream's a 10, Boca's a 7, Delray is a 6. And Boynton happens to be a 5, which is pretty
Wow.
impressive.
Ooh, so let's go for the 6. Go for
He
the
wants the
6 and the
5.
5. We
Why not?
excel at everything else. Let's excel at this too.
Let's, if we're jumping in.
It's really going to help us all with these insurance premiums
It-
because it's a
I
lot.
think we go for it, and if we decide to do more later, we can always go back in and change it.
It can be very labor intensive. As Jeff said, there's a lot of moving parts to the CRS ranking, and FEMA comes in and does a whole audit. Juno Beach is a 5, but they put a lot of money into it. They had like a designated person that worked. It's a lot of work to get down to that level. So, you know, you have to weigh the cost benefit of that too, but we'll definitely find out what you need to do to get lower.
Well, I guess I recommend we go with the 5. Is
No,
that what we're
I don't-
discussing?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's at least do the 5.
Yeah, I think
And then
we
if
should
there
go
are
to
some
5.
other, if there are some other things like this, or it doesn't impact that many people, you know, that could potentially help our score, then we can consider that.
I will
as
do
well.
more homework, and I will speak with our FEMA rep and go over some of that and some of the CRS experts and see what we can do to help things along. I'm
Mhm.
this is awesome. I was slightly nervous bringing this, but this is good.
Do you need a motion for this or yes?
So you have multiple options. You could send us back to bring back a clean version 1. You can approve version 1 with the amendment to a 5-year look back, and then in second read, when that comes back, which will be advertised as the 5-year.
I think we can do that, right? Because it's just a simple change. It's just-
Yeah. It's a simple change.
I move that we accept the proposed ordinance for the town of Highland Beach to amend Article 6 floodplain management of Chapter 20 with the change of a 5-year look back instead of a 3-year look back.
I second that.
Do you need roll call or yeah?
Okay, Commissioner David,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Peters,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stern.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you very much.
Go get your CFM,
Thank you,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Thank you.
Right, that's one of the factors.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Any discussion about the consent
Mm.
agenda or anything like that? Or any public comment about the consent agenda? Seeing none,
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Seconded.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to unfinished business, the Building Department Recertification Program update. Welcome back.
Jeffrey Miss Building Official, Town of Highland Beach, once again for the record. Okay. Good news on the milestone. We have 8 buildings that are certified, and which is good news. And there were 52 buildings. We had to add 53 because Braemar Isle kind of added their garage to do their parking garage separately. So that ended up turning into building 53, and they're certified, which is good. So Braemar Isle, Dalton Place, Delray Sands is actually good. Highland Towers, Highlands Place, Villa Magna, Villanova, and Wilshire House. Those are the 8 that are actively certified right now. We have 5 buildings that are under review right now. And that means we're looking at them and we're going through their reports for their structural and electrical reports. There are 15 that we looked at and we had questions about what they submitted to us. So we're waiting on those 15. 17 buildings are currently undergoing restoration right now. So we have 17 buildings that are just actively being worked on, which is, I was expecting 5 or 6 at a time, not 17. But there are 17 that are actually being worked on at this time. The number of buildings that are outside the code ordinance and have missed their deadline, 0, which is awesome to hear.
That is.
We have another 4 buildings that the letters were sent, but they're not due yet. They probably won't be due till the end of the year. That's Le Sanctuaire, Toscana Beach Club, Toscana North, and Villa Mare. And then we have another 4 that some of them aren't even due for years yet, such as 3200 South Ocean, Toscana South, Toscana West, and the villas at Highland Beach at 3511 South Ocean. So we're in really good shape. We've come a long way with this, especially since we had the issues with everyone looking for extensions last year. And then all of a sudden we got 18 or 19 of them in at the same time. So we have a lot of good compliance and we're over, I think, really the big hump and we're on our way. So it's good news.
Great news.
That's great news. Thank you.
Thank you,
So
Jeff.
thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business, resolution number 2024-017. A resolution of the Town Commission of Town of Highland Beach setting the proposed not to exceed millage rate pursuant to section 200.0652B and setting the date, time, and place at which the public hearing will be held.
So the resolution is consistent with our first budget presentation that David and I gave. He's going to go over, give you another summary. Nothing's changed. I always like to give good news. Healthcare came in under our estimate, so that's good news. Came in at 6.5% rather than the 10 estimate. That is staying, no changes. So staying with Blue Cross Blue Shield as we'd advertised with the new partners in public safety. So everything is going to stay consistent. No changes are necessary. So our healthcare program, 3.5% less, which is good because it's a big number. So that's probably the only change. I don't believe we've changed it in the budget yet because we got a few more things that have to shake out. But everything is staying consistent. Excuse me. So I was just going to have David do a quick summary for those that may have missed, are watching, may have missed what our big picture budget issues are. But again, we are remaining consistent with the 5-year forecast and nothing has changed since David's presentation in June.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is again, just an overview. I even circled some things that are still outstanding. And I also circled some things on this brief presentation that just to remind you of what's going to happen in the next couple of months. So again, we already talked about how our property values have, it seems like it's peaked for now. And how they're starting to drop down a little bit. We also talked right here, you can see where we talked about inflation. So this right here is property values and this right here is inflation. You can see the change, right? We're starting to come down a little bit. And so here, this right here, the bottom one is the consumer price index inflation marker that we use. And again, just to recap, this right here was our operating millage. This is the debt service millage associated only with the fire department, and no longer are we going to be collecting a millage for the water and sewer. And so again, our pledge, staff's pledge to you at this point still remains that we maintain our 3.5875 mils. We're looking at the same data, the history of it. The green there was the water, was the water operation, and then we had our normal operation millage. You can see our total millages went down. You see the combination. This year, what we currently have is we have operating millage. We had the millage for which is baked into our operating millage for the debt service, and then that was our water millage, and you can see how that's going away. Again, we're just recapping. So what we're recapping here is we're looking at our preliminary budget of $17.5 million. And you can see that, as Marshall had said, we had assumed a cost of living adjustment, or our COLA, for this area at 5%. We adjusted it for the increases in health insurance. And again, the big driver here was, the new staff that we brought on. Remember we did that shift, right? We were subcontracting out for fire services, right? Had less employees on the fire side. Well, now we're just doing that shift where we're getting rid of subcontracting, and we are going to be in control of our own fire department. And what that's done so far is that's allowed us, I've added approximately 300,000 in for a contingency in our general fund, just to see how this first year of fire kind of shakes out. And we also anticipate adding back to the reserves. Remember, we pulled out $4 million from our savings account, right? And hopefully what we're anticipating for FY25. If you recall, FY24, we put $250,000 back, started our replenishment of our fire department for trucks, major equipment. That the greatest thing about this commission is that they're looking ahead, right? You consistently look ahead to your next commission that's going to be inheriting the decisions you make. And so this is a beautiful thing where we're putting it back to where it belongs. And so that's great. But anyway, so about $17.5 million that we have there. And you can see down here, it's mostly, employees, health insurance, pension costs, payroll taxes, and whatnot. This right here was by the departments. Remember, I told you I circled some things that I just wanted to make sure you were in tune of, right? Here you can see Public Works, right? We put $1 million into there as a budget placeholder, okay? Because we know that we're going to continue to have other structures, water, sewer. We're going to have other things. Now that you were successful at something that hasn't happened in the state of Florida for 30 plus years, building your own fire department, we're going to move on to the next successful thing. And so we've added $1 million here, along with the fact that we have our reserve for contingencies, an amount that can be appropriated to our reserves.
Public Works, that's old fire station.
Yeah.
That's the majority of that money is the old fire station. So, and again, architects are working on that now. They gave me an early August deadline for some more firm drafts after working with the structural. So we'll have something here to react to very shortly. But that's what that money is.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
Right there. Yep. So again, $17.5 million, our general fund. We talked about, here is where our current fund balance is. And based on this budget, as well as where we are at currently, we believe that our fund balance will get to be about $7.9 million. And it looks like it's really nicely balanced, right? Congratulations really to this
Mhm.
commission. It's a nicely balanced fund balance. You have some that are unassigned for whatever the next issue might be. You placed money away for budget stabilization. You placed money away for disaster recovery. If you recall, in 2024, we even put $250,000. We started that plan to down the road, we're gonna need new equipment, right?
Mhm.
Keeps on breaking down and so we're starting to lay that foundation, which is excellent. That was the general fund surtax revenue. You remember we talked about how this right here expires. It's coming. We don't have a choice,
Mhm.
right? But the idea is that we're gonna be we budgeted this year about $711,000. We're going to pull, and it's all going to capital needs, and that's really what it's designated for. And so this discretionary sales tax, we're going to continue to use it. Here are some of the projects that we're going to use that money on, right? We're going to use it Public Works, Police Department, and at the end of FY25, we're anticipating that we'll still have about $392,000 left in that checking account,
Mhm.
let's just call it. And we'll get another tranche from the state of Florida, but eventually that nozzle shuts off, right? Keep in mind, that nozzle shuts off on that day there. So, and we'll just continue to use it for the capital needs of the town. So that's our discretionary sales tax fund. And the reason why it's in a separate fund is because it's restricted on what we can use it for. Okay. You have the building department, this right here is the building department's budget. Again, it's overall driven by labor, a little bit of operating. We have some capital outlay that we're going to use. The building department is going to contribute maybe to resurfacing. We have this part here that was nicely resurfaced back here, but a lot of trucks come in and out for building activity. And so they're going to be resurfacing the back part of town hall and other stuff, but it's going to continue. We left all the transfers the same because so each fund and each department makes a transfer into the general fund to cover their overhead costs, right? To cover your time, the town manager's time, your finance accounting, your board clerk's time. And so that's all been audited and the auditors feel like our allocation method is reasonable. So they're all fine with that. But so our building department is the budget seems reasonable. The biggest thing that you can see there, the blue line there, that's the change. We're gonna capital outlay. It's going from $72,000 to $412,000. And here's what we're doing with the capital outlay, right? We have some office improvements, some repaving. You remember what I talked about repaving? Remember the software that we're trying to upgrade, right? To meet FEMA requirements, that's in there. And then just some other office equipment, for that fund. But again, look at its checking account. Still healthy, right?
Mhm.
Still very, very, very healthy. And again, you're laying out the foundation for future years of the success of this town. So next is the water fund. This is what I've circled. The last time I brought you this data, we only went through 3 cycles. In August, I'll do another water and sewer billing cycle. Okay, that will get me data for June and July. Okay, and so that's what I circled. So one of the things that we'll bring back to you next, this is my estimate of where I think we're going to be with water revenue and with irrigation revenue. I'll get actual numbers by the 5th of August, let's say, when we bill it out. So the next presentation that we bring this to you in September, will have truly updated. But right now, your staff has forecasted where we think we're going to be. But again, it's a nice trend. It's growing. We see that it's growing here after the 3 cycles. And it still looks very healthy. But we have a water, what you're going to see in the month of August is you're going to see a bill notice that says, hey, the town of Highland Beach is going to have a public hearing on this day. I think it's August 10th.
No.
No, sorry.
September 18th.
I'm sorry. Thank you. September 18th, the town of Highland Beach is going to have a public hearing to consider raising the rates for the water and sewer.
And what's our next rate increase? I forget.
Next rate, I think, is 10% on water and 12% on sewer, or 10% across all the sea.
It was
Oh,
eight.
no, 8. I'm sorry, 8%. I apologize.
And the most recent, this one that we're getting the 10.9, what did we target? What was our increase last year?
Our increase there was, I think, 8% as well.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
It was 10 last year.
Yeah, I
Then this
think
is 8, and then next year it's supposed to be 5.
Okay.
Or
It starts
we go
going
over
down.
it to
Okay.
3 cents.
Yeah.
We'll
So we,
reach that 5-year model forecast. So
Yeah.
now we're back to CIP adjustments.
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So we
Last year, I'm sorry.
we targeted 10, but we got 10.9, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
And that's probably because consumption went
Yeah,
up.
Exactly.
So, okay,
Yep.
that's good. It's good that we're getting what we targeted. So,
Sure, absolutely.
go ahead. Commissioner.
Sorry, just reflecting that last year, I know for the condos, there was a significant increase in the water rate.
Right. Yeah.
And
last
you're
few
saying
years,
it was
yeah.
8%?
Well, no,
felt higher.
I was right.
10%.
This coming year to be 8%.
Mhm.
Last year's, the rate increase was at 10%.
Okay.
Right, that's correct.
Mhm.
That's correct. Yep. So we're still on track, but what I wanted to share with you here was the fact that we're still waiting on that 4th cycle
Yeah.
to get actual more data. And again, this was our water fund. This, if you recall, debt service was the big change in this one, right? It actually went down, right? And so, but that was all part of the plan. We already know what debt service is going to be for the next 25 plus years. But so we have a general 5% increase in salaries and related and other operational expenditures. But see, you can see here, it's got a nice little, it has a relatively nice mix of where the expenditures occur in this fund. And you can see for our capital improvements, these are the items that staff recommend that we tackle this year. I'm sorry, in FY 25. And you can see that even after we tackle it, we still have 131 days of operating cash. And what that means is that just takes how much we need to operate the town's water department divided by 365. And then we divide that by how much cash we have in the bank. How long can we last if no one pays their bill, if there's an event? And so that's good. On the sewer fund, kind of the same idea, right? Water and sewer go hand in hand. Same idea. We're still waiting for the August billing, and we'll get truer numbers and be able to really true that up. So when I bring it to you in September, that'll be the most accurate data that we have.
When do the rates change?
The rates will go into effect October 1. You probably won't see it on your bill until December.
Mhm.
Right, because what we do is we only bill 6 times a year. And so we bill you for the previous 2 months. We always bill on even month numbers. So just if you ever was curious.
And those
Thank you.
annual changes have been October
Yes.
since the beginning of time.
Yep, exactly, right? So, yeah,
It's effective. We just don't see the bill
right,
until
Oh.
December.
right. yeah.
Yes,
Right.
correct. It's a lagged. That's
Yeah.
right. It's lagged.
Yep.
So the
Hello.
October 1, when you start using your
Mhm.
water, yeah, it's based on the new rates, but yeah, you don't get the bill
Till
until
December.
later. Yeah.
Till December, that's
Yeah.
correct. Yep,
Yeah.
no, you're absolutely right. So clean the carb.
It's
in
your
September.
Christmas gift.
Right, yeah, no, exactly, yeah, exactly.
That's it.
So- But same idea, the biggest, this right here, again, if you recall, this one here, see operating expenditures. What don't you see here? You don't see any employee, right? Because we don't have employees. What we really do is we have employees on the water side and we see what we do a transfer because we know that the water employees have to do certain things for the sewer. And that's with the lift stations and things like that. But a majority of this right here is Delray, right? So Delray bills the town of Highland Beach for its treatment of the sewer. All the lift stations pump to Delray, where Delray has a big meter, and that's how they calculate our bill. And so we've anticipated that increase. Again, this one here has a little bit more significant days cash. It still has a healthy fund balance, right? We still have some future projects that we want to tackle with that, including the sewer lining that is on our radar. That's the next thing that they're looking at, the old fire station as well as the sewer lining. So that's definitely gotten to a priority one type of project. But these right here are the projects that we have right now on the books that we're going to be doing, mainly lift station repairs. At the end of the day, this is your summary. Okay, so what you have here is you have all your funds. You have general fund, discretionary sales tax fund, building, water, sewer, total. Then, so this right here is all your sources of income coming in. And then down here is where it all goes. And so you can see here that you want to make sure that the amount of money that you have bringing in, where is it going? The blue lines there are internal fund transfers that we talked about. How much is the sewer going to the water? How much is the water going to the general fund? How much is the building fund? So all the ins and outs. And then you can see here the functions of government, right? You can see here general government. You can see public safety is probably our biggest. So at the end of the day, it's a well-balanced budget. It's a little bit over $27 million to provide the services that we provide to the residents. That's what the millage, and that's what this resolution states, is that number one, it states the millage that we have set there at 3.5875. And another requirement of this resolution is that it states that we will hold a public hearing on that specific date. Here is the things that we've checked. These are next in line. You can see here that we checked the box here when we had our preliminary presentation. We met with the Financial Advisory Board. They endorsed our plan. And we're right here in July where we have that first reading of the millage rate and when the public hearing is going to be set. August, if we want to have another round of meetings, we can, to see how those numbers really came in from water and from sewer. We can definitely do that. And then the area that we have to land is our final September hearing. So that's what's on the next round.
So the 8% increase for water seems appropriate at this point in time. And
Yes.
so, I mean, there's
Yes.
at this point, you see no reason
That's correct.
to change.
Right now, right. That is correct.
So that's good.
How driven are the sewer rates, since we have an agreement with Delray?
Yeah, right. That's just one of those agreements that it's a majority of that fund's expenditures, right? I mean, look if my budget is let's round up $2.5 million, $1.5 million is that agreement. So we are heavily dependent on that agreement. So
And does that agreement, as it's set now, does it project the increases?
Yep.
yes, yeah.
3%
Okay.
through 2029.
Yeah.
And then we agree to renew. If no one says anything, it automatically renews. So,
Right, yes, but it's also based on flow.
yeah, it's all flow driven.
That was my next
Yeah.
question.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's all about
it's not a
flow.
fixed
Sure.
cost, it's a variable
Sure.
cost. So, right,
Yes.
that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
So, yep. So that's all I have.
So I guess my observations, the fund balances and all the funds seem appropriate.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Right.
We're covering expenses that you've projected,
Yep.
For this year, and you've projected going forward, and so no pitfalls
Right.
in the future.
And matter of fact, we're able to, we've increased our contingency, because remember, this will be our first full year, right? With,
Right.
with our own staff, right, and equipment. And so we've added a contingency there, okay? And then not only that though, but we also are starting to replenish in the good times, right? In the good times, let's squirrel away. Let's replenish that $4 million that we pulled out. And so that's another thing that we've done. And the third thing that we were able to do is put away money for the former firehouse. What do we want to do with that? And so those are successful things that this commission's done to not only keep the town moving forward, but also make it that much more pleasant for the next commission that comes behind you. Hopefully not until 50 years down the road. But at the end of the day, it's, you're just doing everything right at the right time, and it's phenomenal. So congratulations.
I have another question.
Yes.
I can't read that.
Yeah,
It's
either can I,
much too
right?
small.
Sorry.
What do you have, what is the line amount for the hurricane recovery?
What is,
And how did you arrive at it?
oh, you talking about back here?
Yeah.
You're talking about for fund balance? Well, actually, you know, what's funny, staff made the recommendations, right here. So, the GFOA, or the FGFOA, the Florida Government Finance Associations, they came up with, how much you should have in your buckets. These right here are the buckets. See these, I know it's colored kind of crazy, but these are your buckets, right?
Okay.
And so you approved a fund balance resolution that says, you know what? Of our expenditures in the previous year or for budget purposes, we will put away this amount. A certain percentage, we'll put away I think it's 16.7% of your expenditures into disaster recovery.
Of your
Or into-
operating fund for
Yeah.
the prior year?
Yeah, so basically what
Okay.
that means is that shields it.
17%.
It says, hey, look it, I have $8 million.
Mhm.
And David, the only thing we're missing really on this town is a hospital, a private hospital, right? As a service that the government provides.
Mhm.
But at the end, and you said, you know, we want to build that. And I would have to come to you and go, no, madam, you can't do that. We have an internal restriction that says, no, we've got to, you know what you can spend? 2.5 or $2 million. That's what you can spend for that right now.
Mm.
So this is an internal
Mm.
thing that the board has approved.
Mhm.
That says of our free cash
Mhm.
and that's what fund balance represents. A theoretical free cash flow.
Mhm.
And so what that does is that tells you, hey, no, you know, you can't spend, we're not the federal government, so we can't just print more money. But what we can do is we can restrict ourselves and continue your legacy of building a financially superior community along with all the other services that you provide.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
we're in a
no,
good
no, you
position.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I need you to approve at this meeting, I need you to approve the rate as well as the time and date and location of when the public hearing will be.
Public comments, yes.
Rick Greenwald, Tranquility Drive. One comment, David mentioned in his presentation that the sewer relining project is on the radar. And I applaud that it's on the radar, but it's not in the budget. And we had a considerable discussion about this at the Financial Advisory Board meeting. And without a formal vote being taken, many of us, the clear-cut majority certainly, but people there felt that this project really needed to be moved up the list and should be reflected somehow or other in this year's budget. Now, that doesn't mean that millage rates have to change. We're fine with all of that. This project has been on the to-do list now for multiple years. Keeps getting postponed. We had COVID in the way, costs went way up, bids were bad, blah, blah, blah. A lot of good reasons. However, if the original assessment that we really are in need of relining our sewer pipes or we face potential damage and dire consequences, then that's a project that we really felt strongly needs to move ahead. And there needs to be planning to get that moving along. We did not get into it, the Financial Advisory Board. Well, how do you finance this? Obviously, it's unfortunate the governor vetoed the line item that was going to give us $750,000 for that project. That's unfortunate. However, the town, you guys have gone to the considerable trouble already, and the citizens of the town have voted to approve money for a sewage project, relining project, recognizing the importance of it. And the fear of multiple members of the Financial Advisory Board was that by postponing this, we're at risk of a self-inflicted wound, if we will. And that the potential, and who knows, I mean, nothing's happened so far, maybe nothing will happen. But, you know, the imagery beyond the stench and so on, but I mean, the imagery of sewage bubbling up somewhere is not one that the town really wants to take on. And that therefore this project should be approached with more alacrity, and it's way worked into the budget. And there are various, as David well pointed out, there are various ways to obtain funds, but that somehow or other it should be reflected by the commission that this really needs to move along. I don't think it needs to change the basic premises. Financial Advisory Board applauded the clean audit, all the work's been done, everything else, we're in great shape financially. But it was really felt strongly that this project needs to move up to the top of the list. Thank you.
What's the status? I know we talked
Yep,
about
yep.
it. And
So.
yeah, so you can give an update on the status.
Yeah, so we've taken a few steps. So one, our lobbyist and as we were discussing earlier, Representative Gossett Seidman had pushed us on to, there's some DEP grants. Madison's closing in on some loops on that to see if we qualify, if the grant's appropriate. We've reached out to the state for the revolving fund, which would give us basically a 2% loan if we want to do the whole shot. What we also shared with the FAB was, can we do what parts can we do concurrently with the FDOT project while we're making a mess? Can we get ahead of it? Or could we do the side streets, which we contemplated, do those now? So when they leave, we get right back into the FDOT right away. So we're still trying to work on some project timing. But we as Dr. Greenwald had said, we know where the money is, how to get it. We can, if we had to, we get an SRF loan, boom. That goes relatively quick. We're designed, we're shovel ready. We can just pick up and go. I was having a few staffers look into if there's any existing contracts that are open with sewer lining. Maybe we could jump ahead of SRF and maybe get the south end of town before they get there, hit it, and then switch behind them. So some of those conversations, myself, Pat, Sergio need to start having with FDOT to determine what can we do while they're staging this project? Because they already got all the control fencing up. It's a good time to make a mess. We don't have to pay for that at least. So we're just trying to see if there's a contract out there, or do we have to go get a contract? And I believe Pat has started working with Hinterland, who's our emergency contractor. He may have a contract or a bid that's out there for the resin company to come do that. So we might be able to start picking up pieces. We just got to talk with FDOT once we figure out, one, do we have a contract? If not, we have to go out to bid just to get that contract. That'll take some time. But if we have a bid that exists, we can do some cooperative purchasing. Then it's, what do we want to go tackle? And then I'll bring it back to you. What do you want to go get? Because the community, Dr. Greenwald was right. The community did approve it. So we can do up to $3.5 million. So we got the authorization from the community to go. We have the money for the most part. If we decide to do it all one project, probably a loan would be appropriate because we'll see what the size of that is. We also talked about doing it in bits and pieces. You know, if we got the side streets done, some of the south, and we wait till next summer when it slows down to get to the other pieces. So that's a little unknown. We're just how much cost is there? Can we find a contract that we can lawfully, as we say, piggyback upon and start lining? And what if we get a yes that exists, then we're going to sit down and pencil it out. What do we want to attack? bring in FDOT, what can we do ahead of them? It's not that intrusive to be in the right of way while FDOT's there. It's just a couple trucks. So, and then, go through that process.
But should we make it an explicit line item on the budget? Like what triggers when it actually, we all know it needs to be done. It's been
Correct.
approved and all that kind of stuff. Does making it a separate line item on the budget, does it accelerate the project? Does it have any significance at all?
No, I think accelerating the project or the things we have to do over the next month or two is one is does there a contract exist, a public contract exists that a vendor will extend those pricing to us? If yes, great. We'll tie down a contract with Len and we'll get them on board. Then it comes into project planning. Like I said, the Public Works team and I will sit down and say, what is reasonable? What can we tackle? Bring the contractor in, how fast, how quick, where? And then we're gonna have to double back to FDOT and say, can we do it now or do we have to wait? And see what those costs are. Once we get a contract, they usually do it by linear foot. So it's simple math. Once we get a contract and we can see what those bits and pieces are. So I think we will start, if we could find something to piggyback on, I'm sure Skender in my office will find some contract out there and I'm sure a vendor would love to do work. Then it's how quickly can they mobilize? So we still have some of the project planning pieces, but I'm glad Dr. Greenwald came to communicate that the FAB was unanimous and this should be, public project number one is make sure the sewer's in place. So,
So how do we
once I
address?
answer a couple of those questions, I'll have Linelda put it as an unfinished standing agenda item and we'll talk about it until it's done or you start yelling at me. So we're going to get this project done one which some way. If at some point FDOT says we'd rather not, then we could talk about, okay, we do the side streets and then we go to the SRF and do the rest. Or if the pricing's good, we could break it over a couple fiscal years and get it all done. I just want to see, I need to see if there's a contract. If not, we have to go out to bid, then it'll change that and then it'll slow it down a bit, but we're moving forward. So we'll keep it as a standing item. So that puts all of us, staff included on, especially public works staff, that this has to be, we got to figure this out and figure it out now. Especially with the FAB pushing on that pretty hard. I figured you guys would probably agree. So we need to really start seeing what's available. And again, Madison's looking at, the grant programs that people are throwing at us. Is there an opportunity there? Do we qualify? Again, what you find with a lot of the grants is it sounds exciting, but you have to be a special qualifying type community, income based. Some of the grant programs that like through the SRF had grants, our income's too high. So those type of things usually hobble us a bit in the general public grant portals. But we're still there. Those should be tied down shortly.
So maybe it's coming up with a project plan or something with some milestone deliverable dates so that
We'll put that
so that
together.
it's clear that it's a high priority that we are working towards and
Yep,
that
two
there are
loose
some
ends
dates.
really that I need to tie down to see. Basically, the biggest one is there a contract? Will they extend it? When can they show up and how much? Then tie down to FDOT, what will they allow us to do in the right of way while they're working? Then we can come back with, here are your three options. And you guys are gonna direct the ship, which way do you want to go with this? And then we'll run it from there. So I'm thinking it's soon. Again, I say soon in the last couple of years, you're right. I mean, then we get hit by these random, obstacles. So we're moving. It's happening.
Sounds good. Any other public comments? Okay. So we need a motion for the resolution.
I move that we approve resolution number 2024-017, setting a not to exceed millage rate of 3.5875 and a hearing date of September 3rd, shouldn't this be September 3rd, 2024?
Yep. Two typos. David.
We'll fix it.
Someone got a
Second.
second?
I will second, yes. You have my second on that.
That was me.
I didn't know you finished.
So
Yeah.
Goldberg, second.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Okay,
Peterson,
Commissioner
Goldberg,
David,
Measure.
okay, Commissioner
Yes.
David, Commissioner Goldberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Peters.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stern.
Yes.
And Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item B, approve and authorize the mayor to execute the local agreement for emergency medical and fire assistance between the town of Highland Beach and the city of Boca Raton. Excellent.
Afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. This has been a while working in the process. If you look at the numbers, they're not exactly attractive, but the general consensus out there is that we're going to be receiving a lot of aid. We have worked very, very hard, Tom, myself, and Matt, to create a fire department that is self-sustaining. And over the last 10 weeks, we have not called anyone for assistance except for the regional hazmat team for the gas leaks, which is part of their mandate. So we think we'll be very diligent and have very little use for others' support. But in any situation, we got to plan for the worst. And the plan for the worst is that if we have a major high-rise structure fire or something that multiple casualty incident, like everybody else in the county, we will be asking for help. Now, because of our size and the amount of equipment we have on staff, many people think that we will not be able to reciprocate. So they're not wanting to do, Boca did not want to do a mutual aid, which would be of no cost. They wanted to do a interlocal agreement to provide assistance. And which is why we have the agreement. We have set it up that way. I think it's a good start. I don't think it's going to be overwhelming for us to provide help to them. I don't think it's going to be able for them to provide help to us. But right now it's one-sided. But we've seen in a year or two when we have some more numbers to prove our point. I think our projections so far have been right on point. So I don't know that we'll have a major issue moving forward with an occasional request for assistance if needed.
Would one of the other plan, whether it's a mutual aid or the way it's written, be beneficial financially?
Financially, it'd be beneficial to have a mutual aid because the mutual aid doesn't.
Right.
has no
It's zero.
cost. Yeah.
Well, oh, okay. But then
But-
we're using, and I mean, we have the staff, we have the firemen, we have the equipment. Do you think
I
that
said
we'd
that
have
to
the
be blue in
capacity?
face, and that's pretty hard for me to do, to be.
Yeah.
blue in face.
We'd have that capacity?
We have the capacity to provide assistance on occasions when we need it. We're able to run 2 calls simultaneously. We've done it many times in the last 10 weeks. We have the ability to provide them with aid. They may be requested because one of the rescues they requested was denied in the budget. So, things change. I mean, I think experience is the greatest teacher. And when people get more comfortable with the relationship, they can become more comfortable with extending more, privileges, if you will. So it's just a matter of time.
And again, that we anticipated our initial jump into this fray that we'd be on a pay-based
Right.
relationship just because folks just don't know us, how we operate. Can we operate? Are we going to be efficient? Are we going to be responsive? So, kudos to Chief Joseph and his team. This is where we need to be. And I'm glad Boca finally came around. We'd spent a lot of time talking on different fronts and, hey, same medical director, same procedure, response procedures. We had the same schedule, same 3-man rescues. We do everything the same. So they eventually came around, but again, it's going to come with a cost. But again, I don't see us as a high use on this agreement. So I don't see the issue with it. I think it's really something we need. We got it. As got a fire department. No one thought we could do that either. So we're continuing to succeed and move forward and progress with our fire rescue department.
Our big test is going to be this winter.
This is for clarification. Are we reaching out or are we negotiating with any other like Del Rey or anybody else? Or are we just limiting ourselves to an agreement with Boca? Where do we
Well,
stand?
County.
The way the agreements work is that they want your closest neighbors to reduce the response
Right.
time. So we have an agreement right now with Palm Beach County, but their closest station is off Military Trail and Clintmore Road thereabout. The next closest station is at Jog Road and Linton Boulevard. So you're looking at a response time of about 10, maybe 15% depending on traffic. You really want to have your neighbors, the closest neighbors, be involved in that kind of agreement. Del Rey obviously is off the table right now, although they're changing the chiefs, so who knows? There's the optimism in the air. Boca Raton is our next best option. And what we have right now is the best we could get in the current circumstance.
But this doesn't preclude us for having multiple.
No, not at all. Most departments, like Boca Raton has a agreement with Broward County, Delray Beach, and Palm Beach County,
And soon Highland Beach.
and soon Highland Beach. So you make as many agreements as you can, because sometimes if it's a busy situation, you may get one unit from this, one from that one. That way you don't overwhelm any particular jurisdiction, because they have to provide protection for their own residents. So we try to kind of mix and match.
I can understand why they would go this way because they're afraid that it would be a one-sided use agreement.
Will be a leech. They're afraid there will be a leech.
And I get that. So we just have to show them that it's
Not.
not going to be.
There you go.
How do we project an anticipatory cost to us? Is it in the operating budget?
Well,
Good.
There's a little bit of flexibility in there, but again, that's where David has the contingency in there to kind of like, no, we don't know. And we will, so I kind of wanted to create the sinking fund a little bit in the fund balance too for fires. We don't know. These rates, we'd have to have a lot of calls really to have a budgetary impact. Not that I'm downplaying the cost, but again, 10 weeks, we haven't, had a call that needed anybody else. So how often? It's going to be very rare. It'd probably be more rescue related, I would guess, during season. I'm not the professional in the room. I'm just talking on my own. I think we'll probably be more from the calls that I see come through, more rescue side of it, more so than fire side. So, and again, the rescue cost it's not out of sync.
So the numbers that we're looking at right now are in with what our projections were. We were projecting about 2 calls per shift. We were averaging about 2.5 to 3 calls per shift. We've actually run one day 9 calls in a 24-hour period. The second time we run 8 calls in a 24-hour period. And we didn't call for help because we're able to manage it internally. The only time we run into issues is if we have simultaneous calls. If we have 3 calls simultaneously, it becomes more of a burden to handle. Now, if one of those calls require transport and the other ones are as public assist and a fire alarm, we can handle those. It's only if we have 3 transports simultaneously, it may present a challenge. So, but then the acuity of those patients as well. So all those things go into the mix. And right now our projections are been luckily, but you can't tell. So these agreements as a contingency, just like a sinking fund is, if something happens, we have a fallback position.
And since we have no fire, but we were getting about 30% of our calls are fire alarm. We need to start working on our fire alarms, folks. That takes a lot of time off the plate when we're responding to a faulty.
About 15 to 20% of the time we spend on fire.
So once we get those corrected, things get a little better. And that's what Matt and Chief Joseph are working on now, is getting back into those structures and, hey, it's time to fix your fire alarm, because they just go off and we go to it and there's nothing there. It's just,
we do 2-3 times to one building sometimes, so in a 24-hour period. So, and we are cajoling in a nice way to, hey, you need to get this under control. And most of the time we're getting the text to respond and making changes, but it is a problem. It's 15 to 20% of our.
Marshall, do we have a mutual agreement with the police department too, with any of the jurisdictions?
yeah, with Delray, it's a
Delray,
very
too.
functional, high functioning relationship. It's working well. So I'm going to go with Chief Joseph, say there's optimism in the air. I think things are changing over in their side of the house. And again, I think it's going to take time for things to shake out, but I think over time, cooler heads will prevail in the long term. And we'll go from there.
So section number 3 of the agreement says the city will determine whether it will provide the requested assistance to the town. Basically it says it's up to them whether or not they're going to provide the assistance. Any
That's-
concern over that provision?
That's a standard
That's-
response to all of these
Okay.
agreements. The reason why is even in the county's COPCN agreement says the same thing. If you're able to provide it, if you're not able to, let them know. The reason why is that we want to put them at a deficit to say that, hey, you must do that, because we don't have a contract, we have an agreement. We have an agreement that says that, if you have the resources available, but I would hate to have them, deny the citizens of Boca Raton their resources
Right.
to set it over here. And that's what that contingency language is for.
Okay,
So,
so
but-
that's a standard thing,
That's
not
standard.
anything
So-
you would be concerned about?
Yeah,
What would
every
happen is-
mutual aid agreement has that,
Okay.
because you can't drain the other
Right.
municipalities' resources.
Okay,
So how a request would happen is like this. I would my captain on shift here decides, hey, we probably need help on this, or we need help on this, they'll call dispatch and tell the county dispatch, this is ladder 120, Highland Beach. We're requesting that you contact Boca Raton Fire Rescue and have them provide us with XX resource or asset, either a fire truck, an aerial, or a rescue at this particular address. That request will go to the battalion chief in Boca Raton, who manages the entire, and he will say, okay, well, I have one rescue that's available from this area, and then it'll fill the request. If they can't fill the request, they'll go back to the county and say, well, we could provide one engine, one rescue, but, and then at that point, the captain will call and ask, well, call Palm Beach County or call Delray. And the Delray said they will not do an agreement with us, but if we need help, call and they'll send it. So, you know.
Right, right.
And as far as that section you were worried about, that was in our contract with Delray. They said if the truck or the ambulance was out of the house over here, they'd send somebody if they could, but they weren't making any promises.
Standard.
So I know you said in the last 10 weeks, we just had the one hazmat, I guess,
Actually,
and
three or four, I think. Yeah, at least three that I'm aware of.
3 incidences where this would have triggered.
No.
Oh.
So here's what happened. So the Palm Beach County operates under a regional hazmat team framework. So we have 4 teams around the county that we all pay into with our trash removal. It's funded through Waste Solid Waste Authority, and it gives each of the 5 departments like $500,000 to manage their. For that money, they agree to respond to any request for assistance that involves hazardous materials. So gas leak, diesel leak, fuel leak. So if I have a boat that, you know, I would call them, and that's part of that response profile they've agreed to it ahead of time. So that doesn't count towards our response to Boca Raton. If Boca sends a hazmat team over here, it's part of the regional response, and we don't get billed for that. It's not reflected in that agreement.
So in the 10 weeks that we've been operating, there has not been an incident where this would be triggered.
No.
And do you know, prior to you starting our fire department, any idea in the last decade or so, like how many incidences? I'm just trying to get a feel for, in the past, how many times would this have even been triggered?
Well,
Or is it just?
I don't have that information, and
Okay.
I'll tell you why, because Delray would, use this vehicle over there and then use their vehicles over here, and that's why we had the long response times, because it could be coming from like Germantown, and so it would take a long time to get here because that unit was in Delray doing something or on a. So the concurrent calls between where the unit here was busy in the town and they had another unit come into the town, we're looking at 2.5 to 5% per year. So that was the average. So we figured, when the manager and I were planning this, we wanted to be able to respond to 2 concurrent calls simultaneously. Now, the third concurrent call was only less than 1% of the year.
Right.
So we figured, if we are able to,
Right.
so we wanted, because you have to balance the cost of manpower, which is 80% of your cost, and the cost of
Sure.
doing business.
Sure.
So that's the
Right.
balance that
Sure.
we're running. And so we figured if we could run 2 concurrent calls easily, and the third call comes in, and then one unit can free themselves up from a basic call to handle it. So we have a little bit more flexibility there. So that's a 0.5% chance that we'll probably need to request aid locally. But it's a calculated risk, but it is a risk. But then again, everything in life's a risk.
So I'd be interested to have updates when this was ever triggered, like when the mutual, whenever this settlement agreement, whenever
Signing the check with me.
I guess I will be notified. Yeah, that is one way. But yeah, I mean, I am curious as
If we
to how.
have to call for an aid out, Marshall will know right away.
Yeah, Marshall will
they'll
know.
let
And
me
then if you could
know,
let us
and-
know. I mean,
Because the way I had it originally
should-
scheduled was I was the only one who could call for aid, but then it became clear that the captains who were responsible, they're, legitimate people and they could make that call on their own, but then they'll notify me or myself, Tom McCarthy, who's the operations chief, within the reasonable amount of time. And then that will trigger my text message to Marshall in the middle of the night with her response, and then we'll talk about it when he gets to work the next day.
Chief, they're not talking about like, you get a call to town line and both jurisdiction show up. So they're not,
No.
no, okay. That's my.
Generally, who gets there first is the one who's gonna
Right,
run the
right, right.
call.
Yeah.
Just like we used to do.
I mean, it's funny because being an ex-cop, you don't care about politicians. If somebody needs help, you'll go over the town line to help. That's just the common sense.
Well, I think this is excellent. Thank
The
you.
first start.
Thank
It's not
you.
excellent.
Well,
It's
no.
good. It's a good first start.
Thank you to Boca Raton for
Yes.
being willing
Yes.
to
Thank
do
you,
that.
Boca.
Thank you.
I,
Trainer, George Brown.
Yeah.
yes.
Great.
The strategy of, working with other, Boca Ratonians, you know, was a good strategy. And, I think it's great for our residents to have, you know, some additional peace of mind of this official agreement that we will have in place. And it's an excellent starting point, and we'll see where it goes from there.
In 3 to 5 years, we'll be best friends. We'll be doing
Right.
all things together. Well, trucks will look the same. Well, not the same color, but you know,
Mhm.
yeah, we'll recolor down there. But other than that, I think we want to create a partnership.
Yeah.
That is with Delray and Boca.
Sure.
Over the time, we'll want to train together so that we know where our equipment is. We already share a lot of information about the responses in their city as well as ours. So we want to have that, you know, seamless interaction, but it's going to take time.
And we are all behind that.
Yes,
definitely.
I'm certain we are all 100% supportive of that.
So are we.
Absolutely. Excellent.
I think it's great. too.
Yes.
And even in the agreement, having the biannual review every 6 months,
Mhm.
I think is wonderful. And it, you know, right here, right there, it shows the intent to be great partners,
Right. Neutral partners.
mutual
right.
partners.
Right,
Yes,
Any
thank you.
questions?
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Do we need a motion to
Yes.
approve this? Okay.
And while I hope we never need it,
Yeah.
just in case we should, I move that we accept the interlocal agreement for emergency medical and fire assistance with Boca Raton.
I second it.
Commissioner David,
Yes.
Commissioner Peters,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Yes.
and Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Excellent. Moving on, item C, designation of a voting delegate for the Florida League of Cities 2024 Annual Conference. Do we have any?
put my name
All right. All right.
You got it.
Excellent. Excellent.
It's funny, it's already on the form. I don't know what happened.
Would anyone like to do it this year?
No. You got it.
Well, thank you.
Got it.
We can have a
Well,
motion.
It was really satisfying.
Oh,
I was on the
good.
policy committee last year. And it was very interesting. We had 3 separate meetings. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Okay.
I move that we appoint Judy Goldberg
Mhm.
to the voting committee of Florida League of Cities.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. So moving on, item D, discussion of integrating the use of a special magistrate into the code enforcement process.
Okay, so based on your last conversation, I kind of went through and provided what I saw are 3 options. I know there could be a 4th, but I thought these 3 were the closest to how the commission wanted to get there. I would probably lean towards item 3. But the options are we don't do anything and leave it code enforcement board. But we found that we're going to find ourselves in quorum issues and in the inability to handle that workload comfortably. And there's some of the technical issues are starting to grow with fire service. And we have some risk issues we would like to mitigate on the insurance side. So with that not being the best option, there's the violator selection option, which is Len's least favorite option. So what that would be is that who's ever in violation could choose within a certain period of time. Would you like a jury trial or a judgment? So that's an option. There's a lot of issues, a little more administrative work and task, and not a lot of clarity to that. Could prove challenging, but it's a viable option that is permissible. And the other one is kind of what we were classically talking about, how you would break it up. We have all of our violations into 3 classes already in the code, and it kind of tells you what those are. So it's pretty easy that if it fits into class 1 or class 2, it goes to the code enforcement board. Class 3, where that risk really starts to jump up on us in the technical. So the class 3 and fire code issues would then go to the special magistrate, but we'd also insert a provision that if one is unavailable, the other could fill in. So not one guaranteed is only going to handle 1 and 2s or 3s and fire code, but that's the general, and then one could fill in for the other. Relatively straightforward. We could do it via resolution. That's my belief. Len's shaking his head, thank goodness.
It's procedural.
So my legal analysis was good on this one. I kind of cheated. I said it to him ahead of time. But basically we could do it by resolution. So at point in time, we don't have to do it through ordinance, 2 reads. It's not as formal in structure. So we could modify a resolution at a meeting if something wasn't working or needed to be changed again. So we could put this out, if you will, kind of pilot it for a while, see how it works and shakes out. If we don't like something, we can always adjust by making a new resolution. So it's a little bit quicker, allows us to be a little bit more nimble. And the statute and our code allows us to do it that way. So that's staff's, recommendation. I guess the other option I will put out there is that you could just have code, a special magistrate do it all. I didn't hear that from you all. It didn't really sound like you wanted to do that, but somehow to have a bifurcated process. So then 3 looks like your best option. So I could answer any questions. If you're comfortable at some point in time and you say this is the direction, Len would draft up a resolution to effectuate that change, and we'd bring it back to you for a vote, and we would move forward.
Question. How would we handle a situation where it's class 1 or 2 violation, scheduled to go to code enforcement board? The violator comes with their attorney and we don't have a quorum.
And that's the problem with the board. If we don't have a
Yeah.
quorum, then we'd have to reschedule it to when we had a quorum.
But even if they thought they would have a quorum and everybody is called, it's set up for a particular date, Lenelda contacts everybody, they say they're going to be there and they're not.
So what we want to do, or we were looking at doing, is having a standing day with both. So there wouldn't be a huge change. We did meet staff, myself, met with Kevin Wagner, the counselor for this. And he does it, been doing it for a long time, handles a lot of big communities. And that was the idea, was we would pick a date that's circled and held in his calendar. And if something, nothing's available, no, but if the code is a few days before and not available, we could easily move quickly to the special magistrate. That we could do, we'll have standing both. So if you can't get a quorum, it's not like you have to wait 6 weeks.
Right.
We could just push that automatically to the special magistrate.
Okay, because it's not fair for somebody to pay for legal time and show up expecting a hearing and they don't get a hearing. That's not reasonable in my book.
Correct. And that's where the risk starts coming in, if that, we start doing stuff and we kind of go off script and they have their attorney present. That makes me uncomfortable, that we're not in a more structured environment. And I think regardless of where we go, keeping the code enforcement board, we're going to have to look at some training for them, whether that is Len giving the training, maybe the special magistrate teaching them a little bit on how to be more rigid and structured. I think will be very useful over the long term too.
Rather than rigid and structured, how about professional?
Yes, you could say that. So I am going to go with rigid and structured. I'm safer in those spaces.
Well, I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that people like to be involved in the town, and this gives them, some opportunity for people to get involved in the town. It provides for a backup if we don't have quorum, so we kind of cover ourselves with that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe as part of this, we also specify the training.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's what you had here in option 3, but then, you know, also as part of that, there would be training for the town's enforcement board. So, so yeah, I'm in favor of option number 3. And, you know, let's see how it goes. And we can, and it's easy to change, like you said, if necessary.
Well, I think
So,
the training, to me, I made a point last time.
Yeah.
I was shocked that someone comes in, we're so grateful that our people want to serve. And they do it with all best intentions, but we need them equally trained. And maybe we have to look at what they're bringing to the table, their past experience, can they do it? So I think that's working with the code enforcement is going to be that we have a quorum. So I don't know if maybe the rules, I think that we need discussion about that. That has to be more dependable than apparently has been. If I was not aware that many times people do appear and there may not be a quorum and it's unanticipated. Now, when we have a magistrate that we're committed to, he's functioning in other jurisdictions, other towns as well. So he's not going to have the flexibility, and it's hourly. It's not a salaried position. You're here on once a month, the third week and Wednesday, something like that. So I like this. I like having the magistrate and the community. I favor 3 as well, that case distribution by violation class, because at least we know that if there are any violation class 1 and 2 or 3 and all fire code violations, that the magistrate will handle it.
Do we know in advance when there's no quorum, or the people come up and we find out at that meeting?
Sometimes.
Like, what would the last one? But I think the last one, we thought there was a quorum and nobody showed up, I guess, or not enough people.
It happens from time to time. The clerk's office locks it down. They do it ahead of time, and then, oh, I forgot I got to go on a trip, or I'm not ill, I got a doctor. It's okay. It happens. But it's happened a lot more frequently than it should, especially on this quasi judicial board. It's not as, I mean, all of our boards and commissions have a hard time getting a quorum, FAB included, right? So, I mean, everywhere you have a hard time. So, you're right. We have it, and then at the last second it falls out. We have to go through the rescheduling, re-notification process, hopefully get ahead, or don't make a mistake and communicate and get to the petitioner before they show up. We've had a time where we didn't have a quorum, fell through, when we didn't notify petitioner. Petitioner shows up with architects, a lawyer. I mean, and they're paying their foot in the bill. So that stings a bit to have to eat that crow, if you will, when they call me. But those are things that, we try to do. And then also the composition, we do stipulate on the code enforcement board that these type of individuals have to be on it. I don't think we meet the mark on a lot of those. So now we're gonna have to, maybe we have an opportunity to, when it says you should have an engineer or a business person, an architect, we could work to solicit those skill sets, which the code says should be represented on that. So those are we have the opportunity now to maybe be a little more selective potentially. And then, I've asked for a quick change on there, on the application now, especially, not to pick on the FAB chair here, but, can you be available in the summer when we review the budget? I mean, those are questions. Maybe we should have a checkbox exist, because that's critically important. As you heard, from Dr. Greenwald today, they didn't have it. They couldn't make a recommendation, quorum fell apart. So we want to make sure, folks, that if you're on quasi duty, you got to be here year round. It's kind of a requirement. It's tough. I get it, but we should have the ability to start working on that.
How-
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. How often do we have meetings for the code enforcement board?
Monthly?
Monthly,
And there's always something for them to hear?
yes.
Yes.
Sometimes they all comply beforehand, but generally there are cases every month.
That was my question too.
and when someone gets a code violation, is it on that notification what class it is? It's very obvious what
It's not on there because the classifications actually are in the citation schedule, which is sort of part 2 of the code enforcement. So it's not, that's something that would be more internal, that if it's a class, you know, depending on the classes, how the town would route it.
Okay, so how would that work then? So there's a code violation.
We would tell them. So code enforcement officer would see what the violation is. Right now, everything goes to the code board, so there's not a focus on it.
So there is no, right now, there is no distinction of what
distinct-
class it is.
We just say there's a
Correct.
violation.
Okay.
Now we would go into, in that section of our ordinance where it spells out and it tells you what's considered 1, class 1, here's 2, here's class 3. And then now we're adding fire code specifically to 1. We'll know how to distribute it and we can put that on the notice if we move in this direction. That's an internal change that Jeff and Adam would make in the code enforcement process.
And if it's not that clear, they probably just always do the highest class.
Yes.
So if it's kind of a blend of 2 and 3, they would call it a 3.
Something of
Something
that
like
nature. I
that.
think we would move to more of a restrictive or more higher elevated type code case, or if it's something so out there that we don't know exactly how it fits, we'd call Len and he'd help us put it in the right box.
Yeah, like I was doing the code for years. They're not that unusual. A lot of work without a permit.
That's
A
the
lot of
majority
work
of it.
without-
Right, right.
That is the majority of it.
So
But
most,
there are other unique ones that come up.
so most of ours would go to the board, sounds
I
like.
think work without a permit might go to the magistrate. I believe
Oh,
that's I believe
Oh,
that's
that's
a
a
class
The
3.
violation.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
there it is.
Work
right there.
without a permit, zoning
These are
code
class 3.
violations
Okay.
would go to the magistrate, which makes sense based on the expertise and, as Marshall said, fire code
Mhm.
as well.
Again, that's where most of our risk is because they can start assessing high levels of fees. If they decide or move off cuff with comments, then all of a sudden we're assessing $50,000, $60,000 of penalties. We've said something inappropriately or maybe not tightened up the case enough to collect it and process a lien. That makes me nervous as your manager. I get nervous there. Like we got to make sure we're not missing a step. So I also kind of fall in the camp of 3, the more rudimentary stuff until we train up the code board. It might come a point in time where the code
Yeah.
board can handle it with time,
Mhm.
you know, and again, there's no indictment on the code board. It's just right now we're short of folks. We're not getting people that meet the types of individuals or professionals that are supposed to be on that board. And at times we're a little risky. So.
It might also come to a point where people are like, I don't even want to serve on this board because I don't want to penalize my neighbors for things. And this magistrate is going, well, let's just leave it to a professional. I mean, might go that way.
It's
too.
not an easy board to be on,
Right.
exactly,
No,
especially in a
sure.
smaller community like this.
Absolutely.
Because they know the
Absolutely.
violator, but yet knowing a violator is not a conflict. So you're passing
Right.
judgment on your neighbors and
Right, right.
it can be a tough
Right.
position to be in.
Not a,
Which there may be a social conflict. There's no legal.
Right, there could
conflict.
be a definite social
That's
conflict.
that's not a legal conflict.
any public comment on this? No? So,
This is just a general guidance, just a head nod, move forward with developing the resolution per our conversation for the next meeting for consideration. Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
and-
so I like,
that.
I like option 3 with a little bit more formalized on the training
Sure.
for code and.
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
but also more formalized on the training, but also more formalized on when it would trigger going to one or the other if somebody's not available. Because there may be times when something has to be done with a limited time and the magistrate's not available.
Okay, so for the record, can you repeat or clarify your recommendation so I can capture it properly in the minutes?
Okay, I'll try. Recommend that we use option 3, but the resolution should have specificity as to training for board members and as to background of board members, and also when there would be a triggering event to go from the magistrate to the board or the board to the magistrate if one or the other isn't available.
Agreed. Yeah, with that. I agree
Got
with
it.
that.
Yes.
Yes, that's good to hear. Okay.
Thank you.
And I think that it could be written with, as far, you have the training. I think when it comes to the background, it may be more difficult to put it into this resolution. So I don't know if it's possible that you can also use, and it's still official, like an administrative document that would be prepared, we could give out to the public, saying that if you have a background in this kind of, either your experience or education, this is what is needed for that position.
Okay.
So that, because that we could work on from time to time. We can include, take off, or,
Okay.
Next item, discussion of the 75th town anniversary celebration.
Sure.
Uh,
So ad hoc committee would be great. So I put that out there. Again, special thanks, starting with Father Horrigan, graciously agreed to be on the committee. Most likely because we'll not only need his facility, but he's been really stepping up and wanting to be a greater part of the community and linking the two together, which is great. So we've got him. Then it came to the commission, right? So I took a poll. So the two to the far right are the two highest vote getters. So we have Goldberg and Peters as the commissioners potentially to serve. I will also caveat Anita's name came up twice.
yeah.
So Don, if you don't want to do this, then maybe Anita will step in and help us out.
No, I'd be willing to do it. I actually voted for the two senior members.
I was just collectively who got the most names put out to would be good for that. Again, the commission liaison would also then be the direct communication back to this commission, like we need about X amount of dollars. Here's the timing, kind of keeping everybody in play. We will also get one or two off of the police foundation. They've acknowledged that they want to also participate and help during this time period. So that will give us a group about 4 or 5. Put your hand down, Dr. Greenwald. You can participate too. So we got another one nominated. See, he shows up for public comment. We grab him, right? So, so we just gotta get the group together. Staff will do a lot of the push and collecting data research. We're just looking for creativity, thumbs up, thumbs down on what we select, what we don't select. Commissioner David wants fireworks, so we're working on that part too. So we're trying to get all of these items in play, and we thought it'd be better if we, casting that into the community to help us pick out those events and move forward. So that's kind of where we're at. We're looking to do that right around or tie into the mingle jingle timeframe, so we could have multiple events.
What do we
December.
talk-
December.
December, early
That's the
December.
Christmas one.
Yeah, between the
Legal
holidays, I think would be a
Right.
good time. Because we've also had discussions in the past that we wanted it's not a fireman's ball, it's a public safety ball kind of fundraiser thing that could be good for the 75th anniversary, starting our fire department, getting something there. Again, the church has got a great place to do it, to kick it off, that they have a nice banquet facility. And I think those are types of events to have multiple events. Just all the details, the giveaways, the vendors, the food, what we
boy.
want to do, side events, all of that. That's where we really, because originally I was just like, oh, we're going to do this. I was like, whoa. That's a terrible idea. This is a 75th anniversary. Staff shouldn't be making all of the calls on what we do. So that's why we kind of wanted to cast that net out. It won't be intensive. There won't be like 50 meetings. So we can go that direction. Dr. Greenwald's going to be the chair. Thank you again. I don't know how this.
Well, that's going to be, that time of the year also is going to be, there's going to be a lot of vacations taken, but.
So some
I'm-
folks said that they won't have a lot of availability, but again, we could do a few meetings, kind of get some ideas, bring back that. So just to keep staff pointed in the right direction, then we'll come back and you could say, yes, no. That way we don't pick something that isn't appropriate or not something that's it'd be just good to have that in there because it's a big event, really.
And
Yeah.
these meetings could be on Zoom. There's no
Yeah, they could be on
legal
Zoom.
requirement that there be a quorum.
No, this is again, this is ad hoc. That's why there's only one commissioner, because if it's two, then it's a public meeting.
Right.
Not
so-
that we can't do that. We could do
How
it
do
too and have a public meeting.
So how do you handle that?
Just
can-
one.
Right, who's it
Just
gonna
one.
be?
So Don and I cannot talk about
No.
it, even though we're.
But you both can't be on the
Right,
committee.
really only one should be on the committee.
On the committee. If not, then it's a public.
It
Yes.
causes
And we
all
have
sorts of
minutes
problems.
and
One
public
commission.
notice and so if just one, and then the one is the liaison back to the
then-
commission to
right.
say, and again, there's nothing that we're not really gonna be teetering on, oh, it's gonna be a future agenda. I don't know that it's that hard on there, but it's safer just to have one and communicate back. People in the public, it's our 75th anniversary. Please talk to your neighbors. We're gonna want everyone to bring and participate. We'll have to make a little budget amendment to say we're gonna
Mhm.
allocate X to the event. So.
So
So
Don
who's it
is
gonna
going,
be?
Don is gonna do that.
Don's gonna do it.
Don's gonna do it.
All right, buddy.
Thanks.
All right, well, I got Anita behind me, so
Yeah.
so like a two-person,
For one.
One deal. Yeah.
And I've been talking to some in our community. I know Phil Loria said he'll help.
Oh.
Calburn.
We'll get Phil in
would
there.
help.
Too. Nice.
And Jack has that great mailing list.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Other people can contribute
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just,
yeah.
The group
yeah.
can grow organically.
Right.
And con-
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
I don't want to exclude anyone, but I just wanted a core group to kind of
Sure.
move it forward.
Mhm.
Because again, people go on vacation, somebody goes out. We just want to be able to keep moving it, and engage folks in the process. And it'll be good to get to this. I think it's going to be an exciting fall. I think we could really make some great events. That'll be fun. We can raise a few bucks for the foundation. It'll be good.
I also offered my building manager, if the committee wants to have a part of the committee or as part of the subcommittee.
If she's
Wow. Thank
nominated.
you. Thank you.
So, yeah, so
Excellent.
again, now that I have some names, I will call an initial meeting and we'll go from that over, probably kick it off in late August. We're doing a lot of the groundwork right now. So we want to be able to get the group to take off rather than what do we want to do? So
Mhm.
we'll get some of the basics together and that way we can, maybe we meet, call Father Horgan, maybe we'll meet at the church to look at their facilities and it's a good spot, kind of off campus. What do we want to do and go from there and see where everybody's head's at and have some fun.
good.
Great.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It'll be
Oh, it's
fun.
gonna
Thank
be
you for
wonderful.
volunteering.
I know we had a lot at the Mingle Jingle, so if we get that much or more, that would be,
I'm imagining the mingle jingle being, we were teetering with, 700 to 1,000 based on our guests moving through. We're gonna be hitting a good 1,000 people, I would imagine, on our 75th anniversary. A couple of the other events might be more limited on space.
Right.
I'm still waiting for a pancake breakfast at the fire station. We gotta have one of those. Or breakfast with Santa is a really common one at the station, so we'll do that. We can tie some of those things into it, and I think that's really where the community, our next phase, the next 75 years, what does it start to look like? And that's kind of where we start that
Mhm.
measure, that benchmark. So,
What is the condition of the old firehouse now?
ooh,
Rough.
I'm sure
There's no
I couldn't
short-term-
thank you enough for building them something new because that place is a dump. And I say that, and those are probably better terms. It's not good. It's in rough shape.
Rough.
Rough shape. It was, I think, maintenance, when we made the initial decision, I think maintenance kind of just fell off. People just didn't care for the facility as much after we pulled it. But it needs a lot of work. It's bad. So
So
we'll get
there's
that-
nothing that can be done, even on a minimal basis, that can clean it up, that it would be a usable space for this event as one of the events?
No, but what we will do is after the next meeting, we'll go for a little tour
Okay.
and I'll walk you guys through the old station. If you hadn't been there, And it's so fun. So we will go over there and go for a little walk.
Sounds like
Okay.
a good job.
Yeah, right. It's gonna trigger the flood.
Right.
FEMA.
So it's gonna be great. We're gonna have the bagpipes back. you
Okay.
know.
But yeah, so I'd hope that we could do, the old station's not gonna be available for anything or even the new space. That's something through the next whole fiscal year or slightly further, depending on what selections are made by the commission. But, you know, we could also do some other side events as part of this to try. I've been wanting to, I thought this setup out here would be great for a green market on a Saturday. Could be something interesting for folks to walk in and have a few vendors,
Mhm.
you know, vegetables, flowers, coffee, I mean, I think that'd be kind of neat. Try it. It's a neat little set off space next to the fire department. We could do something small and see if people like it more towards once people are here in season.
Right.
Could be fun. And that's something that hopefully we could tie into when we design the old fire station space, what we do with it, how it can flex into some
Events,
more
yeah.
outdoor gathering and
Mhm.
use.
Mhm.
Let's see what everybody wants to do, what they want or need, and try different things that you see in other communities that we should be able to do here, once we get the space.
Great.
Excellent. Moving on to commissioner comments, Commissioner Goldberg.
I'm always first, right?
Yeah, yes, you are.
Well, I already mentioned again that Florida League of Cities and their annual convention is coming up in August, 3 days, and we will all be there. Representative of our fabulous town. And it is, I'm going to continue my participation in the policy committee. And I'll see about the advocacy if that follows, but it's available to any one of us. And it's wonderful feeling and being a part of this great state. We're a focal point in the news for everything. There's always a commentary. I hope I read the New York papers, having been from New York every day. And it amazes me the full page ads for real estate, businesses coming to Florida. So this is a great opportunity. We may be small, but we have a large presence there. And our participation is important for the state and for us.
Yeah.
So I thank you. It's a great meeting. We got a lot accomplished, a lot of new stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad about the budget. I like the millage rate. And I'd just like to thank Boca for this agreement and thank the chief and all his men for getting it. I think this is a first step. And all I can say is we're going to have a great 75th, and anybody that wants to help out, just give us a call. That's all right. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you to Boca. Thank you, Chief, that this is absolutely the right direction to go in. And I think we are doing that with a lot of things now. We are moving forward, cleaning up things that need to be cleaned up and getting on the right footing. And that's the direction you want to go with the town. You want to go up, not back. So thank you, everyone, for your efforts.
One or two things. First of all, I want to thank the chief and the department. They've been going through and really doing really good inspections, what I've seen, which hasn't been done in a long time, which is great. Also, Matt's been working with our building on the batteries, trickle chargers, bicycle. And we put together a bunch of rules that we just approved this morning, which Matt asked us to send to him. He may want to use that as a model to distribute for other people's leads on how they can put together since it's such a great fire risk with these batteries and especially in garages and so forth. So you'll be getting that shortly. A question, the second leak on the, was that an FDOT issue that caused the gas leak? Do we know, or?
Yes, it was. So here's the deal. We have a standing meeting every Tuesday morning at 10:30 with the contractor that's doing the work on there. On the meeting this morning, I brought that up. And so what they're saying is that Florida Public Utilities did not provide, well, they provided them with the as-bills where the lines are located, but only for the location of the lines, the main line. They don't have the branch lines, laterals going into the residences in that as-bill. So it's a hit and miss kind of thing. So they're trying not to do that, but they anticipate that there will be more. They're finding a lot of infrastructure underneath that's more closer to the surface than the as-bills are saying. So they're using tractors because they have to make, move the project along. They can't do it by hand. And so what we're having is that they're hitting those lines. And no, they're small lines, they're usually under control right away, usually an hour, hour and a half, but they don't have a plan yet to how to avoid having leaks. So it's probably going to be an ongoing issue. We're going to buy some tools to address the leaks right away so we could reopen the road and get traffic moving again. So that's going to be a bill you're going to see in a few minutes, next couple of weeks. Because you don't want to shut down the road for an hour, 2 hours waiting for response from other. So we'll be able to shut the leak down, get people moving, and then Florida Public Utilities was going to be on scene to fix the leak. One other option they're exploring is to have a Florida Public Utilities person on site. So if a leak occurs, they'll get right on it and fix it. They'll have all the tools ready. So that's being discussed right now. I'll wait till next week's meeting to give you an update if needed, or through the manager's office.
Thank you.
Question?
Okay, some bad communication, some good communication. I happened to be coming over the bridge on the second leak, and there was a Delray officer with the stanchions. And I rolled down my window, and I asked him, is Spanish River open to go around? And he said, absolutely not. That's the bad news. So he said, either make a U-turn, go back over the bridge, or go north. Okay. As I was going over the bridge, the good news is I called our police department. At the desk, she got a hold of a officer on the road and communicated, yes, in fact, it is open all the way till past the sands. So anybody who has to get to the residence and so forth. And I asked for that to be communicated as well. So I think our department did a very good job. I think the officer who told me to turn around didn't understand or didn't know and wasn't communicated well to transfer that information to other residents who might be coming over the bridge. So I just want to make that comment.
I didn't realize that they were going to close the road completely at some points. I mean, they indicated to us when we spoke to FDOT multiple times that the road would always be open, that there'd be delays, that it would be traffic going on one side or the other. But they never said that they were going to just close a section of the road completely.
What I'm referring to is when we had the gas leak.
Oh, the gas leak. Oh,
That-
that's
that's
different.
separate.
Okay,
from it,
that's
but this is-
different.
no,
Yeah.
No, that has been, my experience has been with the road closures. They've done a very good job. They have a traffic light there and it hasn't been, of course, it's not season, but there hasn't been any major long
Mhm.
delays. They've done a pretty good job of moving traffic, I think.
Thank you for clarifying that.
That's
Yeah, so in the spirit of building rapport with our neighbors and building bridges again, I had a nice informal conversation with the mayor of Delray Beach. It was just an hour over coffee, just trying to get to know each other a little bit. No specific requests or anything like that. Just a meet and greet, try to get to know each other. So I wish the best for Delray Beach, and hopefully, I expect that we continue being friendly neighbors. And and I'm expecting we will continue to move forward positively, and all the best for all the things that Delray has in front of them to accomplish. So
Did you have something to fix up the golf course?
no, didn't talk about anything except for just trying to get to know each other. And town attorney?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Town manager?
I'm just gonna echo everyone else's sentiments. Fire department, smashing job. Thank you. City of Boca, my counterpart in Boca, George, thank you. That was very kind to be an active partner with us. Moving forward on the budget, salary resolution will come next, the next meeting on the 6th. Again, kind of reflecting what we've done every year. It's kind of what we do for the non-union employees. That's coming next. That's pretty straightforward. You will also, I'm working with Chief Hartman, recruiting, retention for police officers become more and more challenging. So we have some another option that we are going to present to you. Chief's going to present to you to help improve that situation, to keep us in the marketplace and keep us consistent with the other agencies around us. As that continues to be a challenging area. Other than that, I do not have anything else. Thank you.
Okay, moving along to announcements. We have some board vacancies, Board of Adjustment of Appeals, one vacancy, Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board. We have a vacancy. And so meetings and events coming up. So July 29th at 10, we have the Board of Adjustment and Appeals regular meeting. August 6th at 1:30, we have our next Town Commission meeting. August 8th, we have our next Planning Board meeting at 9:30 in the morning. Then August 13th, we have our next Code Enforcement Board meeting. So August 20th, because of the election day primaries, we are closed. That would normally be our next meeting. I'm just looking on the website. So is our next meeting Thursday, the 22nd? I see that. Okay, so just so we all know that our next meeting would be August 22nd at 1:30.
That would be for a special meeting. Do you guys
That's-
want it? Do you need it?
Do we, okay.
That's a
Okay.
good question,
Do
right?
we need it?
Do we need it?
I don't know that.
I
we
don't
need
have
it.
any other regular business pending. I haven't seen any indication that you have concerns over the budget where we need to take a deep dive into any operational component. Do we need it?
I don't think we need it, is my thought.
And then we would come back for the September 3rd, where
No.
we'd have a regular meeting followed by the 501 for the first public hearing. And that would be our next meeting after August 6th. We still have a meeting on August 6th in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're,
Okay. So next meeting, August 6th, no other meetings in August.
Okay.
And then we'll have a few meetings in September, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we have a few meetings. Okay. And then on here, it says July 27th. Is that possibly a typo? Okay. Okay. So there is no financial advisory board meeting on that 27th. Okay. And no board action reports. And with that, I think we can adjourn. Yes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you can just cancel.